This is A-Game. Fast acting, long lasting, with no side effects.
Hey all my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel, where we embrace our femininity, increase our womanly values, and celebrate our brothers. So join me on our feminine journey to learn, heal, and grow. Hey there, my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel. I'm your host, femininity coach, and author of The Crimson Cure, and this is my perspective. So I'd like to welcome you all to the Harlem Review, Season 1, Episode 2, entitled Saturn Returns, okay? And the title I thought was really interesting. Just a real quick fact about Saturn. Saturn was a Roman mythological god, and he was the god of like plenty. He was the god of wealth and agriculture, periodic renewal, and liberation. Okay, so it's interesting that they named one of the episodes after a god of like liberation and renewal and all of that sort of thing. So I'm just going to jump right into just a quick summary of the episode itself. Okay, so we are opening up on the group meeting up with each other after Angie's performance at a nightclub where she's singing. This was her first singing gig that she had gotten, and this is where Camille actually sees Ian again at Angie, at the lounge that Angie is performing at. Okay, so this kind of picks up right after that. So Camille is still in the, she's still in the mode of convincing herself that she doesn't care about Ian anymore, even though she's obviously still love-struck over him. And the word that Ty uses for Camille still being thunderstruck by Ian is D-energy, okay? And so Quinn she's the naive upper crust girl, right? She doesn't know anything about that 304 life. She hasn't lived that life. So she's like real super naive about everything that's going on. So Ty has to tell her that it's basically when a dude's sex game is so good that you can't stop thinking about it and it haunts your vagina like forever, right? Because you can't get over how good his sex game was. So basically, as Camille is sitting at the table trying to convince everybody that she's not hung up on Ian and that she's not running from him and that she's not going to be a coward, which she completely is, and we'll get into that later. Ty actually gets news that she's going to have a 2-page spread written about her in Forbes magazine, which is a big deal because Ty is the CEO of a dating app that is for LGBT people of color. So she's being recognized for her contribution in the tech area, right? Now, since this is a quick summary, I'm going to jump from thing to thing. So Dr. Robin Goodman is the white woman who is the head of Camille's department at the university, okay? And she's the one that's been telling Camille, I got you. You're going to get your tenure. You're going to get your professorship, in a permanent situation right here because of me. I'm going to make sure that once the budget is the way it's supposed to be, blah, 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 yada, 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 that you're going to be good, okay? So Camille has been very cool about that, right? Now, at the end of one of Camille's classes, Dr. Goodman comes in and tells her, listen, I want you to show up at this women's rally that I'm going to speak at. So Camille is like, kind of blows her off or whatever and like, yeah. So she ends up not going, right? So we skip to Quinn, who is now in her shop, and she's hired Angie. Now, we know that Angie's bumming and mooching off of Quinn. She's living with her. She's not paying no rent, nothing like that. So Quinn has hired her at her shop at the boutique, but the boutique doesn't make any money. So neither of them are actually making any money. Quinn is not really helping her the way that usually would go, because Quinn isn't making any money. So she's not able to really pay Angie money. And Angie sort of takes advantage. She knows that. She just uses it as a place to hang out. She doesn't have any dignity about it. She doesn't take it seriously because she knows that Quinn's business is barely staying afloat. So during this scene, while they're in the shop, Quinn opens up a mail notice about the rent for her shop going up, and she doesn't have the money to cover it because the shop doesn't do well. So she's in this quandary about having to go to her mother to actually ask for the money to put towards this newly increased rent that she actually can't afford because the business does not turn a profit. Okay. So since her business is failing, she actually does go and make the call to her mother to beg for money, which she dreads doing because she knows that her mother is going to give her a speech about, not working and not being able to do what this is, and her needing a husband because she's single, blah, 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 blah. Right. So she ends up going to where her mother is and realizes that they're throwing like a charity event. They're throwing a fundraising event for a young lady named Isabella, who is trying to become the youngest woman to be in Congress. Okay. So that's a fundraising event. And this is where Quinn meets Isabella. And so Quinn's mother decides to introduce them and suggest that Isabella should be Quinn's mentor, even though Isabella is a few years younger than Quinn. So while they're there and having that conversation, Quinn's ex is there. Her ex is named Damien, and he's there. So her mother's like, oh yeah, Damien's here. So she turns to greet him, and it's really awkward. They make it awkward. They're trying to make it like it's funny, but it's not. It's just kind of stupid. And so Quinn goes over to speak to Damien, and she mentions to Angie how Damien still looks good. So she goes over there, speaks to him, and realizes that he has a pregnant wife. Now, it's interesting because the wife that Damien has is not as attractive as Quinn is. Quinn is this really well put together, she's really pretty, really shapely, really proper, really, just the perfect fit. And this woman that Damien has moved on to marry, because he dated Quinn for a year and that did not end in marriage because of Quinn. This woman that he has now they're happily married. And that was one of the things that Quinn actually mentioned. She's like, oh, y'all look happy, in a real bitter kind of way. Like, oh, y'all happy, huh? We weren't happy. But that was on Quinn. So anyway, she manages to get around to asking her mother for this money. So they're sitting at the bar of the fundraiser. So her mother's like super disappointed. So she writes the check for $2,500 and gives it to Quinn. And she's like, well, me and your father can't be your only paying customer. You've got to get this off the ground or get a job or get married. Like we're trying to tell you what you need to do to get some success, but you're being hard-headed. And so this is where her mother's reluctance is coming from. So they're trying to give us the impression that Quinn's mother is this uppity, snobby, well-to-do woman that looks down on Quinn just for the sake of looking down on Quinn. And that's not really true. As we find out later on in the season, that's not entirely true. It's not for nothing. She's disappointed in Quinn, but not because Quinn is Quinn. She's disappointed in her daughter because she's not doing what she needs to do in order to have the success that she says that she wants, right? And her mother and father know this, and they were trying to steer her in the right direction. She won't go. So anyway, we jump to Ty breaking it off with her butch, girlfriend. I don't even know if it qualifies. It's so short that she would only went out on a date or two with her. So she meets up at a little restaurant, a little, cafe or whatever, to do the whole fake breakup thing. I'm not good enough for you. Let me let you go sort of thing. And it's like looking into a mirror, because the woman that she's breaking up with is actually saying the same thing. She's actually doing the exact same thing that Ty does to other women. And so Ty doesn't like it because it's like, when you trying to break up with me or whatever. And so Shayla's like, yeah, you know, you're thirsty. And so she leaves her high and dry. So in order to sort of recover herself, Ty and the girls go out to a lesbian club, bar, whatever, right? And so during the course of conversation, they're talking about, you know, heartbreak and being liberated or whatever. And so Ty makes a statement and says, women are the new men, right? And so they all agree, you know, it's 2021, women are the new men, like that's supposed to be something to be proud of. So she ends up spotting this little white girl on the dance floor. So Ty goes down there to like mack her down or whatever. So the other girls are watching, looking like, man, she, you know what I'm saying? She get them quick. She get the women quick. Like she get the women faster than we can get men. And so what we understand is that Ty ends up hooking up with that girl. And the next morning, the girl has bounced on her. She ate her food out of the kitchen and she bounced without so much as a goodbye, without so much as a, you know, nothing. Okay. So fast forward a little bit later on that day, Dr. Robin Goodman calls Camille to come meet her at a bar. So Camille is getting ready to go to an old friend of hers, like wedding party, pre-wedding party or whatever. And she doesn't really want to go because she know Ian's going to be there. But she do and she don't. You know, Camille is a coward. So it's awkward and then it ain't and yada, yada, yada. So she takes the detour to go talk to Dr. Goodman and see what she's talking about. So Dr. Goodman actually goes into telling Camille that she's been suspended out of her position because at that little rally that she was speaking at, she had offended a whole bunch of different women and Tea Party women, right? So this is how she relays the story, which is interesting, especially off the back of the content that I've done over this past week. So Dr. Goodman's telling Camille about what happened and why she got suspended. So she's telling her that she was up on a podium talking about how, you know, deleting your fetus isn't something new because women have always been able to find some type of way to control their reproduction. So she said somebody yells out of the crowd that not all women reproduce. And so she said, well, I yelled back that I'm talking about biological women, right? So she then says somebody else says biology is a Western social construct, right? So they slipped this in here in this little bitty segment in this show, right? Little bitty segment. This is the most important segment in this episode. But anyway, that's what she says. And she says that actually sparked a huge debate at the rally about what a woman is and what it is not. Okay? So what we learned in this particular segment, which I thought was the most important part of this episode, was that right there, the reason why Dr. Goodman got suspended. Mind you, this is a staunch feminist. So she's crying into her drinks to Camille about how she got suspended and how all of these different various social women's groups, you know, Tea Party groups and all of these groups are angry with her and petitioning against her at the school, which is what got her suspended. And they, you know, they basically trying to ruin her life because she couldn't be politically correct enough not to step on everybody's toes. So once she didn't want to step on somebody's toes and somebody else's feelings got hurt. And that's what she was bemoaning to Camille, that it's a bunch of babies because somebody's feelings always hurt. And I wasn't even doing anything. I was talking about women's empowerment over reproduction. So Camille is listening to this, but she doesn't really care what is happening to Dr. Goodman. She's only caring what that means for her career. So she ends up asking, she's like, well, what does that mean for me? So Dr. Goodman is like, well, I don't know what it means because I'm being suspended. So I no longer have strings to pull for you. My replacement is going to be showing up any day now, and you're going to have to deal with her, whoever my replacement is. So I no longer have that power. I no longer have, you know what I'm saying? Like, I promised you that I would help you, but I can't help you if I'm not in the position. So Camille is like devastated because, again, she doesn't care what Dr. Goodman's going through. She could care less about that. She's just trying to figure out how this stops her in her tracks professionally, right? So basically, to give my whole opinion on the episode as a whole, it was just an episode of just awkwardness. It's a series of awkward moments in the episode. Everybody is just in these little stupid situations where they don't know how to navigate it, or they don't know what else to do, or they say the wrong thing. It's a constant parade of these characters putting their foots in their mouths. Okay, the little lies, the little deceptions, the little, and usually it's the deception about themselves. So anyway, just to kind of wrap up a little bit, Camille ends up going to the party, which is where she realizes that Ian is not only back for good, but that he is also engaged to this really beautiful woman. Okay. So any hope that she had of getting back with Ian or whatever is pretty much thrown out the window in her mind, because she can't compete with this woman that Ian has on his arm now. Okay, because he seems to be able to move on. And that was actually an interesting theme in the episode as well, is that the men in the episode, the exes, were able to actually move on and have stable, solid relationships. It's the women who were way too dysfunctional to actually move on. Okay, they can't move on. Quinn couldn't do it. She had that man was her fiance. And once they broke off, he pops up with a whole wife and happy with a baby on the way. Quinn's miserable. She's single. She doesn't even know how to get men. She doesn't know how to run her business. She's just failing in her internal life and her external life, right? She's failing all over the place. She's failing in her family value because the dynamics between herself and her mom particularly are very strained because of Quinn's hard-headedness and how she doesn't listen, how she wants to be this strong and independent woman that's doing everything on her own, but she doesn't really know how to do these things on her own. She has no structure. She has no leadership anywhere, and she doesn't listen to the leadership that her father and would actually give her, because she doesn't want to hear it. Her father's like, nope, you need a husband. You need a husband. Like, we know you. You're our daughter. You're haphazard. You need a husband, okay? She doesn't want to face that. It's interesting that they have Quinn and Angie actually tight enough for Quinn to try to help Angie instead of Angie and Ty, because Ty has plenty of money too. Quinn isn't the only one that has money. Ty's actually wealthy, okay? And she could afford to put Angie up, but she don't. And they pair her with Quinn, two people who in real life, two women would never speak to each other. Quinn would be so embarrassed by Angie's antics in public that she would never talk to her. She would never even want people to know that she knew a woman like Angie, because Angie's just that uncouth. This is the episode where we realize that Angie tells Quinn, oh, did I tell you that I gave top to my last Uber driver? And Quinn was like, yeah, you did. Ew. Like, you did tell me that. You did tell me about your little hoster page, right? And it's nasty. And so when they call for the Uber again to leave the fundraising party, Angie tells Quinn, if he cute, don't cock block me, or whatever. I'm a 304, all right? And so I need the space and the freedom to be that. And I don't need your little constraints and judgments on how I'm operating, because I'm gonna operate like a 304. And so even though the episode is pushing an agenda of the strong, independent woman and the feminist agenda and being so empowered that women become men, it's also pointing to the ridiculousness of feminism. So if it depends what you get out of the show, depends on how you're looking at the show, how you're watching. If you're watching the show to get confirmation on the whole feminist thing and all of those tropes, you're going to get that. But if you're watching the show the way Crimsonites watch the show, then you're going to be able to see that double layer. Okay, on the top, yes, it's pro-woman, strong Black woman, yada, yada, yada. But underneath it, it's showing you how ridiculous it is, because for all of that pomp and show and for all of that, bravado that these women are displaying, all of them are cowards in their own way, right? All of them are cowards in their own way. Camille is a coward for every social situation. Anything that makes her even slightly uncomfortable, she's going to lie about it, or she's going to try to squeeze out of it or whatever. Quinn is a coward when it comes to dealing with and facing the dynamics between herself and her parents, particularly her mother and her mother's disapproval and disappointment in her. Ty is a coward when it comes to in-depth relationships and her inability to connect or really reveal anything of herself so that she can have a connection for real and have a for real relationship. Because remember, Ty is the F19 of the group. She's the toxic masculinity of the group. And Angie is a coward when it comes to facing the fact that she's a failed pop star, that she can't make it. And so she has this false sense of entitlement that doesn't fit her circumstances at all. And she doesn't want to face that. She wants everybody to see her as this, this rising star and this star power and all that, but she doesn't actually have that confidence. So all of them are cowards in one way or another, despite being these empowered, strong Black women. And so once you can see past the layers of these women, of the top of the writing, so you can get actually in the story and pay attention to it, then you actually see how the writers are speaking double speak. The writers are writing two ways. They're writing the rah, rah, rah feminist part, but they're also writing the this is stupid part, because they slipped it in there. I'm telling you, the most important part of this episode was the reason why Dr. Goodman got suspended. That was a commentary on feminism and the ridiculousness of it, where it had gotten her. You can't even be empowered for women without offending women and without offending those who portray themselves as women. You see what I'm saying? So it was a really interesting episode to take a look at. And we're definitely going to keep delving into all of these different episodes for the messages that they send and what they're really saying. Because if we're going to wake up, we have to actually watch things, but then we have to think deeper about what the messages are. Okay? And this episode was an important one. This was a pivotal kind of episode, even early on, even though it's episode 2. Dr. Goodman getting suspended is actually really pivotal to Camille's character and her trajectory, right? All right. So I hope you enjoyed it. Meet me back here next weekend when we do episode 3 and we dive into Harlem even more. So sound off in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if you have not. And once again, I am your host of Crimson Cure, and this was my perspective. Bye-bye, Crimsonites.
Hey guys, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. And if you've got more to say on the topic, leave a comment down below. Also, don't forget to support our sponsor, who so graciously supports this channel by clicking the description box and the link for A-Game at agameherbal.com. You can go ahead and get a 10% discount off of your next purchase using the code Kendra10. This has been yet another Crimson Cure production, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.